John stands as a paragon of artistic achievement and social commitment. Not only is John the first African-American man to join the exclusive EGOT Club, but he also holds a place among just 19 individuals worldwide who have earned this distinction. Loyola Marymount University is proud to bestow on John Legend the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa.
Mr. Legend, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the laws of the state of California and by the trustees of Loyola Marymount University, I now confer on you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining to that degree. Congratulations, LMU Dr. John Legend.
Graduates, families, and friends, I am pleased to introduce our commencement speaker, Dr. John Legend.
And we need purpose, especially in those moments of profound challenge. Of course, this is one of those moments. It's a heated time on our nation's college campuses. We've got roiling crises all around the world. Everything seems to be on fire. Places like Israel and Palestine, Ukraine, Iran, even here at home, where the threat of autocracy continues to gather. But also in the places that probably deserve more of our attention: Haiti, Myanmar, Sudan. Other areas of conflict around the world. In so many of these painful instances, the patterns are similar. So-called leaders act with malice and apparent impunity. They exploit people's very real fears and anxieties. They inflame ethnic conflicts. They pit people and communities against one another. They deploy misinformation and disinformation. They exploit inequalities. They peddle grievance and resentment. And they thrive on dehumanization. When you dehumanize someone, when you call them vermin or animals, when you say an immigrant community will poison our blood, you create a permission structure that allows people to harm them, one by one, or family by family, or community by community. This sort of attitude is a dangerous thing. All of history's worst moral catastrophes, from slavery to genocide, are fueled by this sort of dehumanization. And the autocrat's playbook usually involves identifying someone as an other or enemy, dehumanizing them, and then saying, "I alone can fix it," or "I alone can impose law and order," or dispense with democracy, dispense with checks and balances and the rule of law. You need a strong man. You need to concentrate power with me and take it away from the people where it belongs. Our history books are replete with these types of leaders, replete with the havoc they've wreaked, the injustice they've wrought, the wars they've started, the lives they've destroyed. And those of us who believe in our shared humanity, in democracy, should be worried that these forces of dehumanization might have their way again in 2024. Our problems are not neat. The solutions are not easy, and I'm not going to suggest that they are. But I believe, and I'm certain your LMU professors do too, that a great education teaches you that your job is to think critically. To challenge assumptions, to question the status quo, to interrogate the common wisdom. Moral clarity is certainly comfortable. We prefer for everything to be black and white. Social media pushes everyone to pick a side. And yet, most things happen in those shades of gray. Humanity, life, is filled with nuance and complexity. And I say lean into that nuance, engage with the complexity. So how do we do this? How do we do this, class of 2024? How do we engage with complexity? We do it by listening with more humility, listening with more curiosity, listening with more intentionality, listening with more empathy. After all, with the freedom of speech comes the responsibility, the community responsibility to listen to each other, to give a full and fair hearing. We engage with complexity by recognizing that in a multiracial, multi-ethnic, pluralist democracy, we are going to disagree. That's inevitable. The noise and the mess are features, not bugs. At the same time, though, diversity and difference need not be synonymous with intractable division. Even when we disagree, we have no choice but to find ways to tolerate each other, to respect each other, to live with each other. We might start with the assumption that for the most part, most of the time, most people are operating in good faith. So we can extend grace to them and the benefit of the doubt. We might acknowledge that we each are bringing our own histories and experiences and biases to our perceptions, our own legitimate fears and anxieties, and then we might, each of us, try to see the world through one another's eyes, to do the really hard thing, to genuinely honor one another's humanity, even when we disagree. Because we all are God's children. We all are someone's child or sibling or friend. And class of 24, we may as well talk about the elephant in the garden. Let's talk for a moment about Israel and Palestine. Yeah. No doubt there is staggering, stupefying complexity swirling all around and through this multi-dimensional, multi-generational crisis. The vexing, bedeviling questions have stymied world leaders and ordinary citizens for decades. But one thing is clear: there has been too much profound human suffering. Millions of innocents, Israeli and Palestinian, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, and secular, they yearn for a just and lasting peace. They yearn to live with dignity, all of them, like all human beings, with equal rights and equal opportunity. And yet, they remain trapped in what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called a descending spiral. As you've learned here, there are profound limits to what war can accomplish. War may win territory, but it does not win hearts and minds. War can subjugate, but it cannot unify. War can destroy, but it cannot build. And the ultimate weakness of violence, Dr. King said, is that it only begets more violence. Violence leads only to vengeance and reprisal, fire to more fire. We know this, all of human history affirms it, and Dr. King said repeatedly during another period of national upheaval and campus unrest that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. The same is true of the here and now. Violence will never be a lasting solution to violence. Hate will never be the solution to hate. I come from a family of preachers. All right. I'm the grandson of a preacher, the great-grandson of a preacher, the nephew of several preachers. I grew up going to a lot of church, and I've heard a lot of sermons. And what many of us learned during those Sunday sermons, and I'm sure some of you have learned at this fine Jesuit Marymount University, is that there isn't just one kind of love. There are at least three. There's eros, romantic love, the intoxicating love, the love that burns hottest. You know, the type of love that makes you want to sing. All of me loves all of you. Hey, I made a career of that kind of love. Then there's philia, brotherly and sisterly love. That means love for our family and friends, love for our teammates, love for the places that shape us. It's the love that has you picking up a Mendocino Farm sandwich for your buddy, or throwing them in Foley Pond on their birthday. But I want to spend some time on the third kind of love, class of 2024. The type of love that Dr. King called the most powerful, transcendent kind of love. It's called agape. Yes. Agape is the universal love that's intrinsic to the human heart. The love that burns the longest. It's bigger than any of us because it resides in all of us. Agape is a righteous, rebellious kind of love. And through our histories, the most powerful tool at our disposal to build social change and social justice. You see, it's easy to love your friend or your lover. Agape emboldens us to love our enemies. It's easy to love the people who share our sense of what's right, the people with whom we agree. Agape emboldens us to love the people who, at least in our eyes, could not be more wrong. It's easy to love the people who are marching with us. Agape emboldens us to love the people who are marching against us, even the people who try to silence or suppress us. Agape is the love that dares us to believe deeply in our shared humanity and that we can find a way through together. Love is how we reject anti-Semitism. We reject Islamophobia. We reject bigotry and homophobia. We repudiate the forces of autocracy and avarice. Love is how we learn from the fullness of our histories, from the pride and the pain of our past, to prevent ourselves from being trapped by history. Love is how we dismantle the pernicious systems of caste, of racial inequality that trick us into denying that your liberation is bound up with mine and mine with yours. Love allows us to forgive. And I believe in love because of my own life, because of my own story. Allow me to get personal for a moment. I grew up in Springfield, Ohio. Springfield's a small blue-collar city. My idol, my hero, my inspiration was my grandmother, Elmira Lloyd. She was the daughter of a preacher who later became the wife of a preacher. Like I said, it's something of a family business. In our church, my mother directed the choir, my father played the drums, but my grandmother was the heart of it all in her seat behind the organ. I remember vividly how after church, we would gather in her house every Sunday. She would cook collard greens, cornbread, chicken. And week after week, month after month, year after year, she would sit with me at the piano and taught me to play gospel music. When you hear me playing today, you're hearing my grandmother in me. I wouldn't be the musician I am today without Elmira Lloyd. And then we lost her when I was just 10 years old. I was heartbroken, but nobody was more heartbroken, more lost than my mother. They were very close. They led the choir together. And after her mother died, my mother spiraled into depression and addiction. For a decade, she was out of our lives. I felt cheated and angry. During this time, we were raised by our single father. My 3 siblings and I took care of each other, picking up whatever chores were necessary to keep the house going. I would cook dinner from the time I was like 12 years old. Not a hamburger helper. I went to high school, applied to colleges, graduated from both high school and college, all without my mother in my life. And frankly, I didn't want anything to do with her at that time. I blamed her for failing us, for deserting us. And I thought I had proven that I could succeed without her. And then one day it hit me like a ton of bricks that my mom did what she did because she was in deep pain. She was alone. She didn't need punishment. She needed love. She needed people to see her humanity, her real human frailty, to help her and give her a second chance. So one day I looked into the eyes of the person who abandoned her family, my family, who for a decade left me deeply confused and deeply wounded, and I forgave. We had some difficult conversations with my siblings, some confrontations. We listened, she listened, and together, with love as our North Star, we healed. Today, my relationship with my mother is strong as ever. She just celebrated her 70th birthday with a big party back in Ohio a few weeks ago. She's a wonderful grandmother. She's living her best life. And it was this experience with my mother, and because of her encounters with the criminal justice system, because of some of my relatives' encounters with the criminal justice system, I was inspired to create my own organization called Free America. I learned about our country's addiction to mass incarceration, how the United States has just 5% of the world's population, but 25% of its incarcerated people, how 1 in 3 black men will serve prison time, how more black men are under corrective control today than were enslaved on the eve of the Civil War. Class of 2024, these are no ordinary times, no question about it, but the history through which you've lived, the history you've witnessed, the history you're making, all of this has made you extraordinary. And we need extraordinary now more than ever. The crucible of these last few years has forged in you, the solidarity generation, that resilience and resolve. It's forged strength of mind and character with deeper empathy, perhaps, than any generation before. It's forged a conviction that you can change the world and that you must. Too much is at stake for you to fall prey to indifference or to fear or to division. You are prepared to be thinkers and creators, dreamers and doers, leaders for others, for our shared humanity, for justice. And I like to think that these last few years have instilled in you the recognition that love matters most of all, the kind of love that has defined my life's journey, that radical, audacious, defiant love. Because if love could bring healing and forgiveness to my broken family, if the crime victims I met with can extend love and empathy and grace to the perpetrators who hurt their families, then we all can.